has actually gone wrong? Well, a main bearing is spun. Now, I think this goes back all the way to a track day I did last year with Sparkplug Steve. The car lost so much oil, it wasn't even registering on the dipstick, and basically that was later diagnosed to be a failed crank seal. So loads of oil was coming out of the car. I didn't actually spot it straight away. I think I did 1 or 2 sessions before checking the oil, but at some point in that track day the crank seal had failed and it was just flipping, squirted all the oil out and it was gone. So probably oil starvation occurred at the track day. I got the car back from the track day. It was leaking exhaust fumes on the manifold was cracked, and a few other little, odd jobs, like a heat shield was rattling. So I thought, you know what, I'm just gonna fit the rod job kit, I'm gonna forge it as I did, and I'm gonna replace the manifold and put the big turbo on as I did. All the work went really well. So the car drove perfect, mapped it. The car was fast, it was powerful, and it was a nice car. We were just sort of finishing ironing out some of the mapping, and yeah, the car just conked out basically. I was driving down the road, not much faster than 30 miles an hour, and it just stalled at set of traffic lights. I thought maybe map pipes popped off, something like that. It was pretty much instantly, it was perfect and then it wasn't. I didn't realise at first, but I did eventually come to the conclusion that a main bearing has spun. Now, when I did all that work, this is really one of the downsides of a rod job. The only 2 things that I didn't actually replace were the pistons and rings and main bearings. Conrod bearings, conrods, camshafts, head gasket, head bolts, timing chain, water pump, did I say cams, valve springs, valve spring retainers, everything replaced. Turbo, manifold, even some of the oil lines, radiator, intercooler, it was all replaced. So there was only there was 2 things left in that engine at one point. It was a bare block sat in the car with nothing but a crank and the main bearings. And sadly, the 2 things that weren't replaced, well, they're the things that have gone. So we're looking at full engine rebuild territory. Now, I have had a bit of a sulk, I'll be honest. I have just thought, you know what, I've had enough. I can't be bothered lying on the floor under the car and building the engine. I just lost that passion. I'm back now, and I'll show you some of the things I've actually got planned to fix this car. And I'll talk about some of my future plans now on the YouTube channel. So we'll take a look at the car, I'll show you the parts I've got, and then I'll discuss with you some of the parts that I'm currently discussing with Ross Sport, a few different directions that I can go, but all I can say is the car's going to be bigger and better and faster than it's ever been before. So let's take a look at the car. Okay, so the engine needs to be rebuilt, and the car's, we've got to start from scratch, so there's no point really rebuilding it as it was, in my opinion. We caught it so early, literally every single part what I bought in the last build can be reused. I've already got a buyer for the manifold and turbo, which I will be upgrading to a bigger one. So we can reuse the Jun cams, the springs, the conrods, and the head bolts, loads of things we can reuse. Now, let's have a look at the things that we're not going to be reusing, and they include most likely the crank. I haven't actually taken it out yet, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be shot in the car, and also the block. If we're going to be making any more than the 500-600 horsepower sort of area, we really are going to have to crank up the boost, and in order to do that we're going to need a sleeved block. So I've actually got one of them here. It's currently upside down, but if I just put the camera down, we'll turn it around and have a look. Okay, so here's the block. Obviously it's could do with a nice clean by the machine shop. So looking at this block now, we've got Darton sleeves in this block. I don't know if it's even fit to be used. I got it cheap out of a car that had blown up. Well, it hadn't blown up actually, it was being broken for parts. So I got the block out of that. I'm hoping I can reuse it. So I'm looking now at getting a torque plate. Once I can get one of them, I'll be sending it to the machine shop and having it inspected, and we'll see what we're working with. But if we can reuse it, then this block is going to be able to hold as much power as we can throw at it. Now then, secondly, I've got a crank here. Now it is a bit worn, it is used, but it has not got any catastrophic damage on it, so I'm hoping that a polish will be able to bring that up. If not, maybe a slight regrind. So we'll have to see what happens once the machine shop get to check that over. But this is not the crank that come out of this car. In the UK, Evo engine parts, second hand, they don't really come up too often for the 10. So when you see them, you sort of just got to buy them, and I have done that. This block I've had it for 2 years, I think. So yeah, it's coming in handy now. I thought I'd build the block, take my time, and then when I'm ready, I will pull the engine out of the Evo, swap everything onto this block, and then we'll put it straight back in a weekend rather than dragging it all out over a couple of months. Because yeah, it's nice to keep the garage nice, clean and tidy, and you know, when you take the front end of an Evo apart, it's going to get messy, so I don't really want to be doing that and then having all the mess and everything that goes along with that. So that's pretty much the plan. Now if we take a look at the engine bay of the Evo, sadly he's been sat here for 3 months just being a little stand for my little remote control aeroplanes, which I've been having fun with. But we'll take this little cover off, get in really what's happened, but it's nothing we can't fix. Looking at the spark plugs, I'll just get in now. Every single one of them looks pretty good. So if I just get that one, obviously, where is it? It's looking a little black, but they're not damaged. There's no sign of metal in the cylinder, and there was no sign of loss of compression. So the cylinders or the pistons haven't given way. It was definitely a main that spun. I did take the conrod caps off for the bearings what I fit to the car. They still look brand new, so no problems there. It was literally just a main had spun. As you can see in the sump, there's a lot of metal in that sump, and yeah, it's gone basically. But we did catch it quite early. The oil filter has done its job, and if I take the rocker cover off for you now, we can have a look and we can see those brand new camshafts and some of the other parts. They literally have not been affected at all, so we'll take a look at that now. Okay, so here we are at the engine bay, and I've taken off a conrod cap here, not a conrod cap, a camshaft cap, and here you can see there's literally no signs of wear. They say if you rub your fingernail across it and you can feel a score mark, then it's been damaged and it's not usable, but that's absolutely smooth as anything. So that's probably spun millions of times in a short amount of time they were in there. So there's a little bit of you know, a little bit of marks, but there's not any scratches or scores. It's just normal wear. So that, to me, is reassuring that none of the copper actually made it to the cylinder head. There's none on the timing chain area, so I'm quite happy to reuse those camshafts in the next engine. The valve springs and retainers wouldn't have been affected even if there was metal in the head. You could just you know, clean them out and reuse them. I've also taken some of the oil lines off and flushed them through on the turbo, and yeah, no signs of metal there, so looking good. Oil filters caught all the rubbish before it killed the rest of the engine. Now if you remember the Celica GT4 I done a few years ago, the cams were absolutely shot. They were scratched terrible, and I had to replace them. So I do know what an acceptable camshaft looks like and what a bad one looks like, and they're perfectly usable. So yeah, we got the manifold and the turbo. I'll probably be upgrading the manifold and the turbo. If I do use this crank. It's going to be a 2-litre crankshaft in this block. I think this has been bored out once, 0.5 mil. So at the moment, I think it's about a 2.1 litre or 2.05. So I'm going to basically bore it out to a 2.1, most likely, if it's usable. And we're going to use 100cc oversized pistons, and then we're going to go Wiseco pistons, Manly Extreme, I think they call it, no, Turbo Tough com rods, and then hopefully that crank is usable. We can stick that in. So that shouldn't be too expensive. We're probably looking at about, I don't know, 1,500 quid at that point, just to get the crank, the pistons and the rods. After machine work and the torque plate, maybe 2.5 grand. Now then, the cylinder head, I thought, let's make good out of this bad experience. If I'm going to be taking it all off and putting it back on here, I might as well get it all sent off, have it professionally refurbished, even though the mileage is low. And we're going to have oversized Supertech valves fit to the intake and exhaust, and we're going to have Supertech valve stem seals as well. So that head's going to be as built as you can get it. Pretty much the whole engine is going to be as built as you can get it. The only thing we're leaving on the table at the moment is an extra 0.2 litres in stroke and a dry sump, I suppose you could do, but that's really not necessary. So they're the only two things we're not doing. Apart from that, this is going to be a fully built engine. So that's my plans with Evo. These things happen, you know, build it, DIY in the garage, map it myself, you know, something's going to go wrong. I take a bit of comfort knowing that the main bearings, I never actually touched them, so I don't know if it's really my fault, but you know, it is what it is. We're going to get it fixed. But in the meantime, I'm going to be doing this sort of on the back burner. I'm thinking of getting another car, so another tuner car, and stick around. A video may pop up in the next couple of days, maybe a week. I might have another car to play with, so yeah, thanks for watching. Let me know down below if you even want to see Steve-O. I did consider selling it, because I thought, you know, I don't even know if anyone cares about the car other than me, so I thought maybe just sell it. But I've decided I care about it, so I'm going to do it. But let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers, guys.